The style of Latin drumming is sometimes misunderstood, mainly because it's sometimes hard to find Latin recordings, or it used to be hard to find. They're really out there now. But a lot of players never get exposed to the music because it's kind of overpowered by rock. So let's talk a little bit about the Latin style. The subdivision that we're going to use, again, is going to be eighth notes, but we need to figure out the hierarchy of the limbs just as we did in rock. So in this style, the bass drum should not be too loud. It should be very light, kind of in the background. A key element of this style tends to be the snare drum, and the snare drum is playing what we call a cross stick. So take a look at how we do the cross stick. The cross stick is a great sound. You hear it in rock music, in some of the rock ballads. You certainly hear it in Latin music. You hear it in country music, and you hear it in jazz music. So this is an important device that we use. So here's the cross stick. The beat of the stick is on the head, and then the stick strikes the rim maybe 3-4 inches down the rim. And the goal is to get a nice full-bodied wood sound. Here's a good cross stick. Now, if you experiment, you can get all sorts of different sounds. Some good, some not so good. I'll start toward the end of the stick, and you can hear how thin the sound can get. Not so good. So every drum's different, every stick is different, so you'll have to find kind of the sweet spot to make your cross stick really sound effective. So we'll settle with somewhere here. The fleshy part of your palm needs to remain on the drum. You don't want to get into a bouncing thing like that, because then you get that twang sound. So we want to dampen the head down a little bit. I also see younger players put their fingers under here. That doesn't quite work. So you almost set up a little tripod. Some players do pull the stick off. John Robinson and some others insist that's the way to do it. Other people leave the stick in. The main thing is to get a full sound. So we have that, and then we have a light hi-hat concept. This will not work for most, we'll talk about Brazilian music. This will not work for most Brazilian music. It's too heavy. We want to come up here. In our bass drum, the traditional pattern that we might play for a typical Brazilian bossa nova goes something like this. Now, it's a good idea to maybe introduce the bossa nova rhythm after the drummer has a rock beat in shape. For example, the rock beat that I just played was something like this. So a close cousin to that would be the bossa nova rhythm, but it's a lot lighter. If any of these limbs are out of whack dynamically, it kind of wrecks it. So I'll play a loud bass drum, a crummy cross stick, and a loud hi-hat. It sounds totally different. It's important when you're playing Latin music to understand what the music's based on. And in Latin music, it's based on oftentimes the cross-stick pattern or the bell pattern. In Afro-Cuban music, it's based on what they call clave, which is kind of the rhythmic source. In Brazilian music, the bossa nova is based on the bossa nova rhythm. The bossa nova rhythm is a two-bar pattern that sounds like this. In order to play that rhythm with the bass drum, it does take coordination, so I'd like to simplify it one step. Let's do what we call the cheater bossa and just do part of that rhythm with the bass drum. That's pretty easy. The hand and foot never play together. So a way to introduce your players to the bossa nova rhythm would be the cheater bossa. 1, 2, 3. So obviously there's more to Latin than the bossa nova, but I think what we need to understand is that for our purposes there are really three major fronts for Latin music. There's Brazilian, Afro-Cuban, and African. Then of course you can get into the island music with all of that, but if you get certainly your Afro-Cuban and your Brazilian music down, then that's a great start for Latin drumming. So work on the cross-stick sound, work on your bass drum independence, and work on the lightness of touch.